It is great to have your company here on Business Weekend. Well, a couple of weeks ago, there was a quiet boardroom revolution at an emerging Australian biotechnology company. The revolution at Arovella Therapeutics included the removal of 2 directors and also the chief executive. Behind it all, one of Australia's serial investors and entrepreneurs, David Williams, just months after he failed to get sufficient shareholder support to remain as chairman of the artificial skin company PolyNovo, though he does continue to own more than 3% of its shares. Now to Arovella. It's working on cell therapies that specifically target certain blood cancers. One of its directors is Dr. Sam Fiorenza, also the Deputy Director and Cell Therapy Lead at Epworth Healthcare. David Williams and Dr. Sam Fiorenza join me now. Many thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. David, can I start with you? PolyNovo had unique biotechnology. Arovella clearly is seeking the same thing, right?
Arovella's gone into cell therapies, and the very exciting thing about what's happening in this market is that we're moving from highly toxic treatments like chemotherapy into very targeted immunotherapy and cell therapies using the patient's own immune system. So it's really exciting and has the same potential, which I think you're getting at, Ross, to be a platform technology.
So, Sam, you've been working on this for some time. Just explain where Australia sits with this technology, where it is in the global marketplace, and how it is commercialised.
Thanks, Ross. Australia's always been a real world leader when it comes to immunotherapy. From the start of my days when I was doing my PhD with Professor Ian Fraser, all the way through to great luminaries in Australian immunology. But this represents sort of a new frontier where we're taking that immunological knowledge and putting it into patients with the idea of curing cancer. This sort of therapy is something that's novel in the Australian biotechnology landscape and also really across the world, where we're not just manipulating the normal type of immune subset called the T cell. In this case, it's an iNKT cell, which is a sort of potent anti-tumour killer cell. They're genetically modified, they're taken from healthy donors and kept in as a bank of cells and then infused into patients with certain types of cancer.
Okay, but effectively what it is trying to use the body's own immune system to be able to fight and specifically target the cancer cells. I mentioned in the introduction, it's focusing, Sam, on blood type of cancers. Does it go beyond that? I've seen talk about hard cancers, all this type of thing. Where does it actually go to in terms of the work you are with right now?
You're watching YouTube, but did you know there's a YouTube music app where you can listen to ad-free playlists based on whatever mood you're in? Get YouTube Music Premium.
So the trial that we'll be running at the Alfred Hospital and at the Epworth Hospital is being done specifically in certain types of blood cancers called lymphomas. But the platform has broad applicability to be able to introduce into solid tumours as well. Everything from pancreatic cancer, gastrointestinal cancer, ovarian cancer, those sorts of things. But the trial that we're running and the one that we're working up at the moment is the one that'll be in blood cancers for the moment.
Okay, then explain to me the commercial implications. There's always a cash drain while research is undertaken. And of course, if it doesn't work, then the investors lose their dough. But the second thing is, if it does work, clearly there is significant gains from that for the nation, for the company, for its shareholders. Just explain how it is commercialised.
So commercialisation is not my thing, Ross, but I can talk to the science. The way these sorts of things work is they go through clinical trials, starting with a phase 1 clinical trial where they attempt to find the optimum dose to cure patients. That's based upon both safety of the drug and how well it works in terms of curing the cancer. And then once that optimum dose is taken, then they move to a phase 2 trial, and then eventually these big phase 3 trials where you test it against standard of care therapy. With each increase and as they go up, the risks get higher, but the rewards and potential for finding a potential therapy for certain patients increases.
Well, David, you do have practical knowledge and applications in raising the capital and then seeing these things through to commercialisation. Just at what point does the money start flowing through the door?
Oh, not for a couple of years, Ross, but understand just to simplify it down, that what we're doing is taking a patient's own cells and because cancers have a way of evading or suppressing cancer and detection, even though in you and in me and in Sam we've got these cells running around in our blood supposed to be knocking out this cancer. But so the treatments are really in two broad silos. One is to take your blood and take those killer cells out of it and multiply them up if they're getting a bit tired and putting them back into your body. The other one is to take the cells out and to engineer them so that they go after certain types of cancers. So the second thing, which is where we're very unusual at Arovella, is that we're trying to make these so that we can have that product on the shelf. Because if you're in rural Australia or anywhere else, the access to these treatments is the most important thing. So there's a number of things happening at once in terms of how you treat with the cells, but also access to those cells and so forth. So, but it's a couple of years out. But look, Ross, look at Polynovo. I mean, it was worth $1 billion before we really had a product. So as we prove up the technologies, then we expect in these companies to have a share price reaction.
So, okay, I heard you and saw you commenting this week on the federal budget and about the incentive it gives inventors and start-up companies. You were pretty graphic in what you were saying, the impact it would have on investors and their appetite. Have you softened your view at all in the last couple of days?
No, I've hardened my view in the last couple of days, Ross. But, I mean, one of the things that didn't come out in the paper is this, that if you start limiting the way in which these people can get R&D funds or be taxed to 10 years, look at Polynovo. It really took 15 years to get a product, and now we're another 5 years on that product. So if you artificially control these things, you're just killing innovation. I mean, we're living in a world where the old economy's gone, and this is part of the new economy. And if we get this right at Arovella, for example, it's in Australia. Australian patients will be the first to get this off-the-shelf treatment, and but it'll be a world first.
Okay, but then you described it more specifically, the capital gains tax changes, as a kick in the balls. I mean, that's what you actually described it as. The reality is a company such as this one in its infancy may be better to set itself up and take its technology overseas and not develop it and the jobs and the skills here in Australia. Isn't that the danger of the disincentive that this new capital gains tax, as proposed by the government, creates?
It's a huge risk. And what I made the point of is that most of these startups are very nimble. They don't involve hundreds of millions of plants that have to be, and tens of thousands of people. In Arovella, we have 15 full-time staff and not that much in the way of equipment. So it's easy to pack up and go to Singapore and go, well, there's no capital gains here. So it's a big risk. It's a big risk. And if somebody graphs this in 2 years' time, people are going to go, what happened to innovation in pharma and biotech and devices in those 2 years, 3 years? Well, I'll tell you what happened. Somebody kicked them in the guts.
I'll tell you what's interesting, Sam, because even you as a scientist working in this field, you can't be without consciousness of the tax situation, of the incentives that are around for companies like yours, for ideas like yours to be developed.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult, and it's a competitive funding environment as well, not just with regards to finding the investment dollars to work on these things, but also the research dollars, which are getting thinner and thinner as time goes on. So it makes life particularly tricky when it comes to trying to build new therapies and utilise Australian innovation and Australian know-how to get these things to market and treat patients.
I'll tell you what, it is good to have the both of you on the program today and explaining that piece of Australian ingenuity. Dr. Sam Fiorenza and David Williams, I appreciate your time.
Anytime, Ross.
Thanks, Ross.
Well, coming up after the break, changes to the way you own your car.